Hey there, I'm Ton Vin, and this is Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. When was the last time you thought about tahini? You know, that beige sesame paste? Tahini had a moment back in 2016, but it's been replaced in the food fad cycle with other ingredients. Rachel Belle thinks it should be front and center. She's a food writer and podcast host. Her new book is a love letter to tahini. It's called Open Sesame. The magic of this ingredient is that it's simple and versatile. Rachel blends tahini into soups. She puts it on tacos and pita chip nachos. She even bakes it into cookies and cakes. But not all tahini is created equal. Today, I visit Rachel in her kitchen for a tahini taste test. She'll give us the lowdown on finding the best tahini out there and tell us some creative ways to use it. Rachel will also share her recipe for homemade hummus, and you do not want to miss that. Ready? Let's go. Rachel, thanks for having us over for this tahini talk.
Thank you for coming over and eating my tahini because I have mountains of it. So this is basically for me to use it up.
Oh, good.
Having you come over to eat it.
Rachel, I love we're doing this because I feel like everything you ever wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask about tahini.
Ooh.
Yes, and you're going to answer all my questions. You have all the answers. So you wrote an entire book on tahini. Why is it important to you?
So the book is sesame. So there's a lot of tahini, but it's also sesame oil and sesame seeds. My dad grew up in Israel, so I grew up eating a lot of tahini. I like to say my blood type is tahini plus. And so I have a passion about it because there's so many bad ones out there. And that came from my journey to make the best hummus that I can. I couldn't figure out how to make it taste the way that I wanted it to taste. And it all came down to the tahini. So I put a lot of my personality and tastes into this book.
Can we do a tahini for dummies? Meaning tahini for me?
Yes. All that tahini is a single ingredient. It is roasted sesame seeds. Most of the brands don't have salt. There shouldn't be any extra oil. It's just roasted sesame seeds that is ground into a paste. So peanut butter-esque, but it should be a little bit more pourable than that.
Oh, wow.
And I have learned, which we're going to learn here in our tahini taste test, that not all brands are created equal. So it's interesting because it is one ingredient, how different all of the different brands taste.
Yeah. So when you say tahini is just one ingredient and it's sesame seed, I'm thinking, oh, so sesame seed must come from the Middle East exclusively. That's how provincial I am. So tell me, where do sesame seeds come from?
They are grown in different continents, the Middle East, yes, but people believe that the best quality sesame seeds in the world come from the Humera region of Ethiopia. So the majority of tahinis in Israel and Palestine come from sesame seeds from this Humera region because they prize these sesame seeds for their flavor. So of course there's like the terroir, like the dirt that they're grown in, and then the way that they're roasted. And then the other thing, like when you pick up a jar, it rarely even tells you where it's from. Like sometimes it doesn't even say the country. So it's kind of hard to know how to pick a good one because like all the tips that I give in my book aren't accessible on the jar of tahini.
So when I'm thinking tahini, the first thing that comes to mind is hummus. I noticed you say it a little bit different than how I say it. So say it one more time for me.
I pronounce it hummus, which is the Israeli Hebrew pronunciation. It kills me to say hummus. And I've come to the conclusion that there's a difference. Hummus is what you get at the grocery store that's packaged. I'm a huge snob. I don't like any of the packaged ones. Hummus is what you make in your own kitchen. I want to be clear though, because tahini and hummus are a lot older than Israel being a state. I mean, countries like Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, kind of that whole Middle Eastern area, they've been eating tahini and hummus for centuries, maybe thousands of years. I just want to clarify that because it's actually a very politically divisive ingredient, and my tastes are just based on what I grew up with, and they are not political at all.
So I noticed that in your book, you mentioned this is Israeli style hummus. Is that why you called it that?
Yeah, because of the tahini that I'm using and because it's the style of hummus that I grew up with. Once I started researching the brands of tahini that I liked, I actually did find that they all either came from Palestine or Israel. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it must be that Humera sesame seed. And so I have strong opinions on which brands of tahinis that I like, and I recommend them in my book. And I'm going to have you taste a couple of them in a few minutes.
Oh, great. See, this is why readers should really get your book. Because I equated Rachel with just Middle Eastern food. And then I open your book and it's like a revelation. It's like, what? Tahini and sesame and Asian food and Mexican food and India? So tell me, how do you use some of these ingredients? Let's say Asian cuisine.
Asian is easy because there's a lot of sesame oil that's used and sesame seeds. And there's actually like a tahini-esque, I don't know the name in Chinese, but it's a tahini paste that is used in Chinese cooking and Japanese cooking too. Like it's sometimes used to make ramen. With the dishes I have in the book, like khichdi, which is Indian food, and then I do like a play on nachos, pita chip nachos. Those aren't traditional dishes. These are things that I kind of either made up or kind of adopted or adapted because sesame is such a universal flavor. I feel like you can weave it into a lot of the foods of different cultures. It's also a really good substitute for peanuts for people who are allergic. So for example, I do just those classic fresh rolls, like Vietnamese, fresh rolls in the book.
Right,
but for the dipping sauce, instead of doing a peanut sauce, I do a tahini hoisin sauce, and it doesn't taste that different. Tahini is also so good in desserts. Oh my God. It's like a match made in heaven with chocolate.
And maple syrup.
Yes. My favorite dessert in the book are the chocolate miso whoopie pies with tahini whipped cream. So there's miso in the batter for the cake part. And then you basically just mix tahini and maple syrup into whipped cream. And then that kind of plays into a few recipes in the book.
Okay, that's one of the many surprises in the book. I don't equate tahini with dessert. You have a whole freaking section on desserts.
Yeah, I think we do that in our culture. We kind of set certain things like as savory and sweet. Like peanut butter ends up being treated as a sweet, but it is savory. It's just peanuts. Yeah. So we kind of do that sometimes. Free peanut butter, free tahini. Let them be sweet. Let them be savory.
Okay, now I gotta try this tahini taste test.
Okay.
Can you guide me?
So I have 4 today. I could easily have had 50. You could go to an international market or a Middle Eastern market and pick up so many different varieties. But I chose 4. I chose 2 that I love, 1 that I really don't like, and 1 that I've never tried before.
Oh, wow. So this is going to be new for you too.
Yes.
I love this.
And the one that I don't like and the one I haven't tried before are very mainstream that people often buy because it's available at their grocery store. So we can go through and taste, and then I will reveal after you say your favorite, which is which. Okay, and then mine.
I can see your kitchen is very clean, Rachel. I'm very jealous. And I also hate you. This should not be like this. It's too clean.
I would assume you would clean like a mad person if I was coming to your place. Like I cleaned before you were coming over here.
Okay, so that's the secret.
That's the secret.
This is how awful I am. You come in my house, this is how it is. This is how I roll. I'm sorry. I have air joints all over my kitchen. I'm not even joking. I use my oven as a place to store air joints.
I've never heard of someone outside of New York using their oven to store clothes. Like my grandma puts sweaters in her oven. I love that.
Because I collect air joints. I'm running out of storage. So I don't cook. So I use my oven.
You don't cook?
I don't cook. Shh, don't tell.
Has this ever been revealed on the podcast before?
I don't think so. I'm breaking news as we speak.
Do you ever heat up your Air Jordans before you wear them?
I was worried, like, if someone's staying in my house, I say, do not turn on the oven.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at these tahinis. And even though I'm the one who set this up, I actually can't remember which is which. So that's good because I'm going to be able to participate in the judging as well. Do you notice, first of all, like a difference in the way they look?
Yes. I would say some look like they've been diluted just by appearance, and some look like peanut butter, like Peter Pan peanut butter.
Oh, love the alliteration. Okay, let's try number 1, which to me is the thickest of all of them,
yes, that's
and not as pourable.
Okay.
And it gives me peanut butter mouth, and now I can't talk.
It has the texture of peanut butter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you didn't tell me, or if you had a party and you said, hey, taste this peanut butter, people would be convinced it's peanut butter.
You think so? I think it has a lighter flavor than peanut butter.
The finish is almost like chickpeas, like ground chickpeas. I'm getting kind of earthy, funky chickpea-ish.
I wonder if your palate just associates chickpeas with it because you've mostly had it with hummus.
Yes. And I'm thinking your Jedi mind tricking me here. Because you're right. Maybe that's why I think that. A little bit chalky,
Yeah.
but I like the texture. I like the finish.
Oh, you
The
do
finish
like
is
the
definitely-
texture. Okay, I don't like the texture of this as much. I like a smoother texture, and this one I find to be grainier and thicker. Okay, let's try number 2.
Okay. It's very like drippy, isn't it? Because I feel like I'm gonna get this on your floor here. You know what? I felt like you started as in red wine, and now we're going to white wine.
I didn't cheese plate this right. Okay. I didn't really know how to set it up.
The first one is really heavy. Like, it coated my mouth. I can still taste it when I was tasting the second one. The second one, it's much creamier and it's drippy. But it actually has a lot of flavor. More so than I expected.
Yeah. And we want it drippy because if you're making a salad dressing, you don't want clumpy things that you're mixing in. You want this like super smooth tahini that you can whisk in with the other ingredients. Okay, let's try number 3. This one's a real mouth coater too.
Looks can be really deceiving because I swear, Rachel, that this was going to be another light one just because it's glistening like it's oil on top. It looks light and diluted. And Rachel is laughing because it's so drippy that I have on my shirt now. I'm going to just lick my shirt. Maybe that will help.
Oh yeah, you're making it better.
This is a little sweet to me. And number 3. Number 1 was thick. Number 2 was really lighter. Number 3 has this, I wouldn't say chocolate, but it has a sweeter finish to me in comparison to 1 and 2.
Now that you say that, I'm getting it too.
Before Rachel and I taste our final tahini, it's time for a quick break. We'll reveal the winner of our taste test in just a moment. Stick around. We're back with Rachel Belle and our tahini taste test. Let's jump in with tahini number 4. I like this. This is the most complex tahini. It's not gamey, but it has some savoriness. It's weird.
I'm curious if this one has salt in it because it tastes salty to me.
Yeah. It's in comparison to number 3, and you didn't set this up on purpose. It's just like a contrast. I said 3 was a slightly sweeter. 4 is really complex. And I'm actually blown away because I didn't know tahini could taste like this.
Okay, we'll do the reveal. Which one is your favorite?
I'm still thinking about number 4.
Okay.
Number 4 is my favorite.
Number 4 is one of my favorites too. It's Haddar by Baracke. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. It's Baracke. And I buy this at Fred Meyer. It's in the Jewish section. There's usually only one brand at the like kind of mainstream grocery stores, but this one is a special one. And I love this one. And I love that it's easy to get because some of these, like some of them you have to like order, some you have to go to like a specialty store. So I think actually this one this one has salt. And I think that's why it's good. They usually don't.
So how much is this at Fred Meyer?
This one, I think it's $7.99 or $8.99.
Oh, I would totally buy that.
Okay, so do you want the big reveal?
Yes.
So number 1, which is the thickest one, the one that is clumpy and grainy, this is Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's in general. I am not a fan of their tahini. And the thing is, when you write a cookbook, you can't control what people do, and it kills me. I write in the book the tahinis that I suggest, but if someone's going to Trader Joe's to get their groceries and they see this, they're just going to pick it up because they don't want to go to 2 stores, and it actually will change the recipe. Yeah. It will taste different. In my opinion, it won't taste as good. Sometimes if you're baking with it, I don't think it matters. It's just in there. But if you're making hummus where tahini is like the second ingredient, you're going to taste it. And that's the difference of the hummus in my book, which is the Israeli style, is you use a ton of tahini. For 1 can of chickpeas, I do at least a half a cup of tahini.
Rachel, I have never heard this because hummus recipes I've seen is a modicum of tahini. So you go the opposite direction.
Yeah, and we're going to try this one here that I made so you can try it because that's basically what gives it the flavor is the tahini. So the brand really matters.
Yeah. So before we go any further, we should back up here. So the Trader Joe's, I thought was the worst of the 4.
Yes. And you didn't know. Number 2 is Soom, which is a brand that I really like. It's a company owned by three sisters. They make their tahini in Israel, but they live in the States. And you can now get it at places like Whole Foods and Di Laurenti, where before you had to order it online or live on the East Coast. This one I like as well.
Yeah. Compared to number one, it was sweeter, like cocoa. Not so much sweet chocolate, but bitter cocoa.
Okay, this is interesting. Number 3 is the 365 Whole Foods Market brand. This is the one I've never had. Because I'm a snob, I generally avoid the grocery store brands only for tahini, not with other things. But I'm looking on the back and it says product of Israel. And I actually really liked this one. Yep. So that means it probably uses those Humera sesame seeds from Ethiopia. And I think this one's really good. This was the one you thought had a little sweetness to it.
And how much is it? Do you recall?
And this one has salt in it too, which is also probably why it's really good. This one was $6.99. Do you want to try a little of the hummus?
Oh, I would love to.
Okay, so
before we go any further, so tell me about this thing where you just, well, I don't want to say drown your hummus in tahini, but why so much? What does it do?
It gives it flavor. It gives it the main flavor. So you have the garbanzo beans, which is like the foundation. And then the only other ingredients are lemon, garlic, and water. It kind of gets obnoxious, these cliches you hear of, use only the freshest ingredients. But when you are making something simple and you can taste everything, it does matter. So that's the reason why I wasn't finding a hummus recipe that I liked, was because A, they weren't using enough tahini, and B, I wasn't using good tahini. So that's what I realized in the process of writing the book.
Oh, wow.
In the style that I make, you don't put olive oil into the mix with the blender. Some people pour oil in. The Israeli style, you don't, but you put it on top, and then you get this really delicious, fresh olive oily flavor. And then I have some pita here, and I'm just going to put, just for looks, a little paprika floof on top.
I want to give you props, Rachel, because on your recipes, you use beet. Sort of as a coloring element, right? Gave it a pinkish hue.
Yeah, there's a hot pink hummus in the book, and yeah, that's just from beets. And then there's a golden hummus, and that one has turmeric and golden beets. And admittedly, I was just trying to make it pretty, but when I tried the golden one, I was like, oh, hello. The turmeric and the beets give it such this delicious extra earthy flavor. I think the golden one is my favorite. Yeah. Okay, let's dip. So
you lead the way.
Okay, just kind of go through the middle. Make sure you get some oil in there.
Oh, it's delicious, Rachel. How long did it take you to make this?
5 minutes. So the other key to making delicious hummus is to have it be silky smooth. I say to keep blending until it's the texture of frosting.
So can you over blend it?
No.
You can't.
No, because then you're just getting more air into it and it's getting fluffier. The best way to make it, which I know is not something everybody has, is using a Vitamix. The Vitamix just very quickly pummels those garbanzo beans and makes them very smooth. Before I had a Vitamix, I would use a regular blender, and you can do it that way, but you have to run it for a long time, at least 5 minutes. Just run it.
Okay, now I'm very curious because you put this in my head. How much tahini was in this hummus, roughly?
So this is 1 can of chickpeas, because I think using canned is fine. A lot of people start from dry. I don't think you have to. And then this one, I started with a half a cup of tahini, which is what the recipe says, and then I did an extra bloop. So probably closer to 3/4 cup. And then there's 2 medium cloves of garlic, a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and salt. And I used the Soom tahini to make this one, because that's the one I had open.
And Soom I have heard of. Very popular around the Northwest.
I assumed you'd heard of it. I have to say I'm very proud of my hummus, because it took me years to get here. And I just think that I'm just kind of on a mission to get people to make it and not buy it. I understand the convenience, and it's not like I make everything homemade at home, but I think for how easy the recipe is, you get such a high return on the flavor and the texture. I'm not going to tell you to make your own mustard or ketchup or anything, but this takes 5 minutes, and I think that it is delicious.
It's great.
And if you want to go out for excellent hummus, go to Aviv in Capitol Hill. They are the only place I've found on the West Coast that makes really, really creamy, delicious hummus. And the owner is kind of a part of how I got mine to be really good. He gave me a tip. He said, I'm not going to tell you the brand of tahini that we use, but I get mine from Israel. And I was like, oh, that's when I started to learn that it mattered. And theirs is delicious. And their pita is insane.
Yes, it was some of the best pitas I had since I went to Turkey. Never been to Israel, but I've been to Turkey. And it just showed me pita bread in a new light, pillowy and just, so flavorful.
Yeah, not the cardboard pita that you usually get.
Which is what I'm used to. You beat me to my last question, and that was Aviv Hummus Bar. Yeah. Hummus-focused restaurant.
Yes.
So now I know how you feel about it.
I love it. I love it.
What do you get there?
It depends if I'm taking someone who's never been before or if I'm bringing people who are veterans, because I feel like everyone should just try the classic hummus when they go. If you go to Israel, you can go to a hummuseria where that's basically all that they serve, like Aviv. And instead of having it be a dip, some people will just eat the whole thing for lunch for themselves because you can put different toppings on it. So it could be, there's a spice called baharat that is used a lot. So you can have like a ground beef with baharat spice. You could have sauteed mushrooms. Sometimes you just put like stewed chickpeas on top. I always say get the plain, the classic, get the one with the ground beef. Get the pickles. The pickles are really good. I love their baba ganoush. Get the labna. The labna is really good. And get extra pitas because the pitas will blow your mind. And take some home, actually.
Rachel, I think you went through the entire menu. And I do. I highly recommend the place. It's funny when we talk about best restaurants, or, you get this asked a lot, and people will mention a dozen restaurants. No one mentioned this hummus bar.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
It's in my top 5 recommendations in the city, actually.
Okay.
I think it's delicious. It's very casual. So maybe people don't think to recommend like a super casual place, but I think it's delicious.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Rachel, thanks for having me here. This is great.
Have I turned you into a tahini man?
You know what? It was gimmicky at first. It looked like it, but I think I'm hooked on your golden beets hummus. What do you call it?
Oh, yeah. There's the golden hummus that has the golden beets and turmeric. And then there's the one that uses red beets, and that's hot pink hummus.
Oh, the hot pink. Yeah. I think that's a good party platter.
Totally.
I believe.
Yeah, make all 3, and it's just like a psychedelic Middle Eastern spread.
There you go. Rachel, this has been so educational and delicious. Thanks for having me over.
Thanks for coming to my house. I can't wait to go to your house and eat your shoes.
Rachel's book, Open Sesame, is out now. We'll put a link with information in the description of this episode and a list of the tahini she recommends. Thanks for listening to Seattle Eats. The show is a production of Seattle Times and KUOW, part of the NPR network. You can support Seattle Eats by investing in the local newsroom and the specialized beats that make this sort of storytelling possible. Consider joining and subscribing at kuow.org/eat and seattletimes.com. Seattle Eats is produced by Claire McGrain and edited by Jim Gates and Trevor Lensmeyer. I'm Tom Den. See you next week.